welcome back. You are in the Firefly Studio 67 and my name is Gina. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. And to all of my faithful and loyal subscribers, welcome back. Today we are going to jump back in. I am now back from Florida. I've got to spend a week with my daughter, son-in-law, and my grandson, which was a really nice trip. So I know I've had a lot of people messaging me, when's the next part of this tutorial going to come out? So I'm going to jump straight into this. This is part 4. And in part 4 we are going to be working on the journal and the belly band to hold the journal. And then in part 5 I'll come back and probably do a few bits of embellishing. I have made a little jump start yesterday evening. Unfortunately, I did pick up some kind of little bug on the flight. I'm not surprised. I've never flown where I didn't. And so I'm not feeling that great, guys. So what I'm going to do in this portion of it is just give you the measurements. I see my throat. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to give you the measurements. But again, your journal is probably going to require a different size, so just double check what's going to fit. But I'll give you the approximate measurements of what I'm using for this journal, and then based on what yours is, you're going to need to adapt that. Having said that, I'm not going to do a lot of talking in this. I'm going to put on some really light music. If you don't like music, just mute it and you can see the steps going forward. And depending on how long this takes, I may have to speed it up slightly. But all I'm doing really is a belly band and creating a mini journal for the back of it in part 4 of this. So let me set this to the side. Because I want to measure this one. I use the exact same size for these two journals. So this journal is approximately 4.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to do this one slightly different, and I want to show you how I'm going to make this journal. Because I've got craft envelopes that I used on this cover, this was part of a card and envelope set. So I'm just actually going to cut this down. This is going to be the covers of the journal, and I'm just going to sew in the signature here and then, you know, embellish this. So that's going to be a little bit different from the original journal, but I think it's going to be a really good use of these cards, and I don't like to waste anything, and so why not? So all I'm going to have to do really is cut this down to 4.5 by 6.5. And I apologize if there is any shaking, guys. Yep, I just cut that a little bit crooked. Got in a hurry, but that's okay. We'll straighten that out. 4.5 by 6.5. And then my pages, I'm just going to I'm going to cut those down to 4.25 by 6.25. So that's just going to make a nice size journal that I can just tuck into that little belly band there. So all I'm doing, guys, I'm going to do a 5-hole signature. If you're new to junk journaling, you're going to need to look that up. And there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube for the 5-hole pamphlet stitch, or you could use the 3-hole. If you're new, I'd probably suggest you do the 3-hole, but none of them are complicated. So just do a YouTube search for that, because I'm not going to go into great detail on how to do that signature. There's many, many tutorials out there that are going to come out with much better view of how to do it. So all I'm going to do is just choose some papers. I don't want this journal to be huge. Just a few nice pages, and I have printed these off ahead of time to coordinate, and this would make a really nice first page, I believe. And I'm just going to fold these and then cut them to size, and then any of those scraps that are left over I can use in the continuation of embellishing the folio. This is what I'm referring to as the folio portion of this particular envelope journal. So we will come back and I'll show you some of the embellishing. I'm not going to do a full tutorial on it because you're going to embellish yours very different. I'll get you started and show you what we're doing, but then I'll just give you a final flip through at the end because I don't want this to become too long. People want to get on with it, and it could just run into too many parts. I'm just going to throw this white piece in. A lot of people don't like to use white. This is a bit of coffee dyed tracing paper. I'm going to throw that in. I want to get a couple pieces of my coffee dyed papers. Wow, that one's really been through it, hasn't it? It's a bit, I won't use that one. That one's got a few tears on there. So if you don't like white paper, then obviously just stick with your coffee dyed. And yeah, I'll just get these all folded, cut them down. We'll get this sewn in. And as I said, you would then just decide how much you want to, how far you want to go with your journal. Do you want to add a lot of pockets to it? I'm not going to in this particular one, just for the sake of time. All right, I think that's actually going to be enough. I've got some extras here. Stick those over. I wasn't sure how many I'd need. I will put a music page in. And then this is some beautiful paper that was gifted to me by Crafty Irina. Thank you. Isn't it absolutely gorgeous? And that just complements this whole pattern. It just screams autumn to me. So, all right. I said 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 on these pages. Going to get this cut. And do not throw away any of your scraps because you can use those in some really nice tags. And just I always double check because sometimes, you know, I'm not great on the measurements, so I just like to always check myself. So I hope everybody is well. As I said, I had a really nice trip. It's just, unfortunately, I started feeling very congested as soon as I got there. And it could just be the change in the climate, but, you know, when you're flying, you're just breathing in that recycled air, and I usually always have sinus issues from the flight, but this one's been really bad. Luckily, I felt fine while I was there. I was mostly concerned about passing it on to Orrin, and but you know, he seemed to be fine. I checked with him again yesterday to make sure that everything was good, and yeah, he didn't seem to have picked it up, so I'm really grateful for that. Really, really hot. I did not enjoy the temperatures while I was there. I never do. It's funny because I've spent, you know, I grew up in the South, but I never really gotten accustomed to the extreme heat. I love the culture of the southern states, but I do not like the temperatures at all. So it was a relief when I got back here. It was actually very much like autumn has arrived. Both Paul and I had kind of felt it before I even left. There was a day we woke up and we just really both said, wow, autumn, it's like it came overnight. It's going to be fine. So when I got back, it was in the mid-60s in the day, so that was a shock to my system. I was really chilled when I got off the plane because it was such a contrast to Florida. Yeah, look at all these beautiful scraps I'm going to have left over to work with, so I will just keep those over here, and I'll use those in this journal. And let me just see how this is looking. I don't want this to get too big. I'm actually not going to put that in there. As this is going along, I'm feeling like I'm not wanting to add the white to this one. I am going to add one more piece of the patterned paper to balance it out. I think it's just too much. I just feel like it needs another piece in there, so. All right. Now, if you are new to journal making, I would just say this. If you're going to do any stenciling or gesso on the paper, I would do that before I sew this in. It just makes it a little bit easier, but that's my process. It's just a preference I have. Let me see here. I'm actually going to turn this upside down there. All right, so I feel like that is enough, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages. So in the junk journaling community, That's 10 pages, but because you've got it folded over, that equates to a 40-page journal, because each one of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how we usually get our page count. So yeah, that is ready to stitch in there. And as I said, I will use a 5 hole pamphlet stitch to secure that. And then that will be ready to put inside the belly band. But I'm going to set this to the side now because I may go ahead and cover this with one of the pages. I haven't decided. I've just kind of done this video on the fly, so I am going to set this to the side until I formulate how I want to do the cover. I don't want to get the signature sewn in before, because if I'm wanting to cover this completely, it's going to be much easier just to pop this out, cover that, glue it, and then probably run it through the machine. And I might want to do the same on the inside, just to completely cover the craft. But then again, I may not. I may want to leave a little bit of a border. This is how I tend to create. I hope that it's not going to confuse you, but it works for me. So I'm going to set that to the side and just give you kind of an estimate, approximation of the measurement for the belly band. So the belly band, I've measured this before, and I just want to give you a little side view. I covered this with the back of the belly band is fabric, because it's going to make it a little bit easier for the journal to slide in and out. It's also going to reinforce that paper over time. Taking this journal in and out is going to wear on the fibers of paper. It's not that strong. So the muslin fabric, or any fabric that you choose, is going to just reinforce the longevity of this. I mean, you know, the reality is this: once you've filled up this journal, you're probably not going to be pulling that in and out a lot, but I like to make sure that my designs are well made and they're going to withstand the test of time. So that's how I choose to do it. If you don't want to do that, certainly feel free to alter it. So the fabric is going to be approximately 2 1/4 inches wide. And then what I've done is I've just built up over that layers of paper and run that through the machine to stitch it all together. I've got some lace here as well, and it just makes a really nice little tuck. Now, you could do a horizontal, but the problem with that is you're more likely that that journal is going to slip out. I wanted it to be vertical so that you've got this to hold it. It's going to secure that in. So this belly band, I would measure that at 10 inches in length by 2 1/4, and then you can, any excess you can just fold under and glue. Okay? So I will be back with my fabric, some lace, and some paper. We'll get all of that lined up, and then I'll have to do the stitching in a separate. And to be honest, I'll probably do the stitching at the same time that I decide what I'm doing with this journal cover. So, be back. Alright guys, I have measured this out and just torn the fabric. I'm going to grab some Fabri-Tac glue because I'm gluing fabric. And I've picked out some papers that I'm thinking would work, a little bit of lace, and again, you know, I may change my mind. Right now, I'm actually thinking that this would make a really nice focal for the center of this. So I'm going to cut this down and see if I can make this work. It might be too wide of an image. I don't know. I'm just going to have to play around with it and see. Because the fabric's 2 inches, so I don't want, yeah, see, that's going to cut off too much of the butterfly, so this probably is not going to work, which is really unfortunate. Okay, let me just have another little look. Okay, now I could fiddle around with that and make that work. I think that's what I'm going to have to do, because I want everything to coordinate. So I'm actually going to set this to the side. I'm going to cut a strip just under 2 inches here out of this, and this is all part of that kit that we're working with, so that everything's going to coordinate. And then my fabric is cut at 10 inches or torn at 10 inches, so I'm going to do the same with this. I'm going to keep it just under the 10, and that's just going to kind of reinforce the fabric and give it a little bit more oomph, you know. So this is how I would begin to do it. I would just lay this here. I'm thinking, oh, I like that. That looks nice. Now I want this to be the focal, so I'd probably just cut this image out. And then I would just trim this up a bit, because that's a little bit uneven there. So let's see how this is going to look. And I could do that, right? That would be fine, but it doesn't really stand out from that. So I'm thinking, oh, this has got a lot of green and this in it, so I think it would be nice to have some of this as the background, and then that makes that stand out a little bit more. So okay, that's going to have to get trimmed down a little bit more, and this is where you're just going to have to work with it till you get the image that you're happy with. And it would obviously be easier if this was already stitched down, but I've got to get this all done in one go, because it is a lot of work to get my machine out. So I'm thinking that that's kind of nice. Do I want to add a little bit of this green? Because it's just, you know, you're just building up more and more layers. And also keep in mind that probably, let's see how much. of this is going to get tucked under, so you want to make sure you've got this centered. I'm just going to measure this again. You're going to have about 7 inches showing. So that's another thing keep in mind, is the placement of this, your focal point. Try to keep, you know, and maybe you want to just make a little pencil mark as to where that's going to stop. That's going to probably be very close to center right there. I like that personally. The other thing I think I might put on this is a bit of metal, as in some brads once this is stitched in. Now, do I actually need any lace? I don't know. I kind of think it would be nice to have some kind of other texture going on underneath there. So if I get all of this stitched, if that was in there, and then that, I don't know, do I need it? It just adds a little bit more, but I have covered up quite a bit, so okay, so here's another thing I've got. This is just off of, I don't even know, something, right? Something I got in the mail or something. Do I want to go with something like that? I mean, that's kind of cool. You still got, you're just building layers, and then I could have a couple of bits of metal piece. I kind of like that. And that's just something that was just, I don't know, you could see it was some kind of packaging. But look at the colors. They go perfectly with that. I like that. Maybe afterwards I could come back and add a little bit more of this in addition to it. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave this for the moment. That's kind of nice too, isn't it? And then just cut that off, that excess off. That's kind of cool, because it makes the lace stand out. Oh, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. Alright, so yeah, I'm happy with that. So guys, I am now going to shut the camera off. I'm going to get everything prepared to go through the machine, and I'll pull that out, and we will have part 4 of this pretty well done. Love it. Okay, I'm going to set that over there. I know that's what I'm going to do with that. I'm really, really loving how that's come out. I mustn't forget to add some brads. Alright guys, let me just have a think on this portion of the cover, and I will be... Okay guys, off camera I have actually taken one of our collage sheets, and I've just cut it apart, and I've come up with how I want this cover to be, because I want to keep this really simple so that it's going to slide in and out. As you'll see on the original, although this is layered up with multiple images, it's all kept very smooth so that nothing's going to get hung when you're moving that in and out of the belly band. That's really, really important. So that's all I did. I want to be in keeping with what's going to be on the belly band portion of it, which is this gold. And I thought, why not go ahead and use that image? I love the image so much. So what I'm going to do now, since I've got to get my machine out, I am actually going to lay some of these down, but then this main portion I'm going to do some stitching around it just to make that really pop out with these stitches as well. So when you see this again, it will be complete on the journal cover, and then I will sew in the signature. So you'll see the journal completed at that point, but I did want to show you that you can take these collage papers the way I'm doing it, and I've just cut it apart, and I'm now putting it back together in a way that is aesthetically pleasing to me. So I hope that that will explain, you know, what I've done here. All right, this is where I'm at. I have completed the journal cover. Just going to show you that. The journal is now sewn in. Everything is very plain on that, which is fine. I can embellish that more later with pockets and so on. And then this is the belly band. And I just ended up doing a little bit of a fancier stitch with my machine. It's not a brilliant machine, but at least it does offer me a few extra stitches. And so now, just take your journal, folio journal, and make sure you've got the top. This is our top where we've got the pocket here to make this. We've got journal cards still to complete. And then I'm going to flip that over, and now I am going to glue this down on this back. And isn't that going to be beautiful? Oh, I'm so glad I found that bit of trim. So I want to get my Fabri-Tac, and I'm going to get a couple of the clips to hold this in place while it the glue dries. And I'm going to start up here because I am trying to keep this somewhat centered. So I'm just going to take a little bit there. And this part you are definitely going to want a very strong glue, guys. It's going to hold this. Oh, I should have had this upside down. Sorry. You know me and glue. I'm just going to open a new one. Gosh, yeah, that was probably a massive mistake. Let me get some of this over on this side. Alrighty. I'm going to get this down, and then I can hold that in place with the clip and let it dry. And then the same on this end. Alright, let me just make sure that I've got all of this the way I want it. Get any of that excess glue. Because I've got to make sure that we've got enough slack in there for that to fit, and that could actually be a little bit snugger. So going to take that up slightly there. Now, bearing in mind, the journal will fill out a bit more when I've added some stuff to the inside and some pockets and so on. So, but I do want it to be kind of snug to get in there, so just play around with it until you get that a little bit tighter. Yep, I think that's going to be about where we want it. Let's get some of that excess glue up. And now, all I'm going to do, guys, is let that dry, and that portion of the journal is now complete. So, that being said, this is part 4, and that really has shown you guys the whole process from start to finish on how to achieve this. I have not embellished it. I understand that part, but you can go back and do that yourself. As I said, the next the next video you see, I am just going to give you a complete flip through, because I have already went ahead and I've made a couple of little journal tags. I've made a pocket here with another tag, and these are things you already know how to do, so I am going to, the final one is just going to be a flip through, and you can see then the elements that I am going to add to it, and just little finishing touches, but that's all stuff that is going to be individual to your journal. So I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this series. If you would, leave me a comment if this is the sort of thing that you're enjoying on the channel, and if you make one of these, please use the hashtag #FireflyStudio67 so that I can see those either on YouTube or on Instagram. And I appreciate you guys so much joining me for this series. Take care, and I will be back soon. Bye-bye.